Snow drifted like falling confessions across downtown as Alexander Hayes stood beneath glowing Christmas lights, staring at the reflection of himself in the glass doors of Hayes Financial Group. At 42, he was everything Success magazine celebrated: billionaire CEO, global investor, philanthropist whose photo appeared in glossy business journals. He had built corporations, funded skyscrapers, and signed deals worth more than most people saw in a lifetime, yet on this Christmas Eve, Alexander felt richer in silence than in meaning. Behind him waited a spotless black Porsche. Above him, the empty windows of his office floors. Ahead of him, a penthouse where not a single light was on. No dinner plans. No holiday calls. No laughter echoing through rooms meant for family that never came to be. He remembered the words of the one woman who had almost stayed. "You'll end up rich, Alex, but alone." At the time, he believed loneliness was the tax paid for greatness. Tonight, standing in the snow with no one waiting for him, the tax felt unbearable. And then, through the hum of traffic and distant Christmas music, a sound drifted into the silence, small, fragile, terrified. A child's cry. That single sound shattered everything Alexander thought he understood about success. And it led him to a story that would change 3 lives forever. Alexander turned toward the sound, scanning the sidewalk. Shoppers rushed past bundled in coats, clutching gift bags and hot drinks. Nobody slowed down. Nobody noticed, but against the shadow of a wrought iron fence bordering Henderson Park stood a little girl, no more than 4 years old. She wore a thin cream cardigan over a pink dress that offered no defense against the cold. Her blonde ponytails were dusted with snow, and her small hands clutched a gray stuffed rabbit to her chest like a lifeline. Tears streaked down her face, frosting over before she could wipe them away. Alexander crossed the street in long strides, crouching beside her. "Hey there," he said gently. "Where's your mommy?" Her wide blue eyes lifted, too serious for someone so young. "She fell down," the girl whispered. "She won't wake up." Alexander's heart slammed against his ribs. "Can you take me to her?" The child nodded shakily and pointed into the park. Without hesitation, Alexander scooped her up. She weighed almost nothing and trembled violently as he carried her toward the stone angel statue nestled near the park bench. There, sprawled across the frozen ground, lay a woman, Grace Thompson, her blonde hair spread out over the snow, lips tinged blue, chest moving in shallow, frantic breaths. Her purse lay overturned beside her, contents scattered like secrets spilled too fast. Alexander spotted an insulin pen and a medical alert card. He was dialing 911 before fully kneeling. "There's an unconscious woman, diabetic emergency," he told the dispatcher. "Small child present. Henderson Park, by the angel statue." Instructions flowed into his ear as he checked Grace's pulse. It fluttered weakly beneath his fingers, tears pressed damp into his coat. "Please don't let my mommy die," the girl whispered into his chest. "She's all I have." The words pierced deeper than any failure or betrayal Alexander had ever known. "I won't," he promised softly. "I won't let her die." The ambulance arrived quickly. Grace was stabilized and rushed toward the emergency department. Alexander stayed glued to Isabella's side as medical staff worked feverishly. In the waiting room, Isabella slept curled against him, gripping her rabbit beneath her chin. Alexander's expensive suit, now damp and wrinkled, meant nothing. He felt something new, purpose. A social worker arrived. Grace had suffered severe hypoglycemia, blood sugar dangerously low. She was a single mother. A public school teacher struggling to afford insulin. Emergency contacts. None. If Grace didn't wake soon, Isabella would enter temporary foster care. "No," Alexander said sharply. And when rules were cited, he filled out papers. Background checks were fast-tracked, resources verified. By morning, the billionaire CEO had temporary guardianship of a child he'd known for less than 12 hours. Over the next 3 days, Alexander experienced a crash course in parenthood. Isabella demanded her sandwiches be cut into triangles, never squares. Her stuffed rabbit insisted on sleeping in the pillow's exact corner. She asked why, at least 700 times a day. she laughed freely. Something Alexander realized he hadn't done in years. He brought her to visit Grace daily. Grace learned what had happened, how a stranger had become her daughter's guardian. Through tears, she confessed the truth. I rationed my insulin, she said. I had to choose between food for Isabella, or medicine for me. The injustice churned Alexander's stomach. For the first time, poverty wasn't abstract data. It sat in front of him with a mother's face and a child's broken fear. Alexander turned his penthouse into something it had never been, a home that he arranged midnight deliveries, early openings, whispered favors. Under a small Christmas tree lay carefully chosen gifts, books about brave girls, art kits, a warm coat, and yes, a huge train set he wanted to play with too. When Isabella saw the presents, she gasped, "Santa found me." Alexander knelt beside her. "Yes, sweetheart. Santa never forgets." Her joy filled the space. Alexander felt something unfamiliar bloom inside him, pure joy without agenda. Grace stabilized quickly. Alexander ensured all her medications, doctor visits, and supplies would remain paid indefinitely. She protested. He shrugged. Kindness shouldn't need justification. He drove them home to Grace's apartment. The building was tired, broken lights, rattling pipes, failing security. Inside though, the walls gleamed with handmade art and love. Grace defended it softly. "It's small, but it's safe." Alexander nodded. "And it doesn't need to be your limit." Alexander didn't vanish as most benefactors would have. He stayed. He paid for better housing but let Grace choose the place. He funded teacher aid programs so she wouldn't need second jobs. He attended preschool recitals. He learned to read bedtime stories. He cooked terrible spaghetti. He laughed, truly laughed, for the first time in decades, and Grace watched the man of cold success turn into someone gentle, patient, and present. What began as gratitude evolved into companionship, and eventually something warmer. Snow fell again on downtown streets. Alexander stood beneath the same Christmas lights where everything began, but this time, Isabella held one hand, Grace held the other. "Mr. Hayes," Isabella grinned up at him. "I think Christmas wanted us to meet." Alexander smiled down at her. "I think Christmas knew I needed you more." Grace squeezed his hand. For the first time in his life, Alexander Hayes knew the truth. Success isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in who waits for you at home.